We are tired, yes, but our resolve is unbroken. When the sun rises, we will show them.
What if I told you that everything you believed in was a lie? We are accustomed to marveling at the gold of the tombs, the majestic pyramids, and the power of the pharaohs. The true power of ancient Egypt lay not only in the hands of kings, priests, or craftsmen, but in the muscles and will of thousands of ordinary soldiers whose names will never be inscribed on the walls of temples. These people, without whom there would have been no great conquests, no stability, and no Egypt as a great civilization, were the foundation on which power rested. Their lives were a series of harsh training sessions, long marches, and brutal battles. And it was their loyalty and self-sacrifice that made the pharaoh a god on earth. The army was the only social ladder that could lift a simple peasant to the top of society. It was a machine that crushed lives, but at the same time gave a chance for glory, wealth, and a dignified old age. Watch the video to the end, and you will learn how a humble private from the provinces could become one of the pillars of the Egyptian state, and what was the true price, expressed in sweat and lives, of a simple soldier defending the throne. First, let me tell you a secret that changes everything. We always see the pharaoh in golden armor crushing his enemies, but who is behind him? It is important to understand that the army in ancient Egypt was not just a tool of foreign policy or border protection, but a key element of internal stability in the economy. The common soldier, coming from the lowest rungs of society, was both the guarantor of order and the labor force for the state's largest projects. This dual role made the army the most important social structure after the priesthood. In peacetime, regular army units did not sit idle. They were transformed into organized work brigades. They were involved in the construction of canals, dams, temples, and even the pyramids themselves when they were built in the Old Kingdom. Military service gave soldiers what peasants did not have: guaranteed food, housing, and even land after many years of loyal service. This was a powerful incentive that motivated young people to voluntarily join the armed forces. Thus, the army was not only a force structure, but also one of the main employers and distributors of social benefits. Moreover, it was often soldiers who acted as tax collectors, as their presence ensured that peasants and artisans did not evade their obligations to the treasury. Armed men acting on the orders of the pharaoh had unquestionable authority, which made the process of collecting tribute as effective as possible. This aspect also highlights their importance to the financial health of the state. Soldiers were also the first builders of new cities and fortresses in conquered territories. They ensured the safety of workers, organized logistics, and guarded caravans carrying valuable cargo. Without their versatility, Egypt would not have been able to colonize Nubia so quickly. Historical records, though sparse, show that it was the rank-and-file soldiers who were the backbone of military power in great battles such as Kadesh. The famous chariots and heroic officers were only the tip of the spear, but its shaft was made up of thousands of archers and infantrymen. Without their endurance and discipline, even the most brilliant commander could not have won. It was a service for the ages, which gave soldiers confidence in the future and allowed them to leave their descendants with something more than just a mud hut. Without this middle link connecting the pharaoh and the people, the entire system of power would simply collapse. How do you think such simple things affected the morale of the soldiers? I wonder how this topic is perceived in different parts of the world. Where are you from? Do you agree with the arguments presented? Want to know the main secret of the warriors of ancient Egypt? The process of joining the army in the New Kingdom was quite strict, although not closed to commoners. The main backbone of the armed forces was made up of Egyptians, but as the borders expanded, more and more foreigners joined the army, such as Nubian archers and Libyan mercenaries. These volunteers from different lands brought their unique skills and combat experience to the Egyptian army. Recruitment into the army was often carried out through conscription from rural communities, where each nome or province However, military service was considered relatively prestigious. So many joined voluntarily, seeking to escape hard peasant labor or hoping to improve their social status. It was one of the few professions that allowed a commoner. The training of recruits was harsh and long. Young men unaccustomed to discipline and physical exertion were placed under the command of experienced sergeants, who had to turn them into combat-ready soldiers in a short period of time. Training included not only weapon handling, but also long-distance marches under the scorching sun, as well as group endurance exercises. Particular attention was paid to physical training, as Egyptian warriors had to carry armor, weapons, and provisions, as well as fight in full gear. Long-running exercises, jumping, and wrestling were mandatory elements of daily training. This helped develop the endurance necessary for long campaigns. Archery training was one of the most important aspects. The bow, especially the complex composite bow, became the main weapon of the Egyptian infantry during the New Kingdom period. Beginners had to practice drawing the bowstring, correct stance, and accuracy for hours. Infantrymen were taught to fight in formation, maintaining order even under fire. The infantry phalanx was the main combat unit, and the ability to move as a single organism was key to victory. They trained in the use of spears, battle axes, and shields, which together formed an impenetrable wall. Psychological training was no less important. Soldiers had to be prepared for the sight of blood and death, for long separation from home, and for absolute obedience to orders. It was this mental resilience that distinguished veterans from recruits and often decided the outcome of a battle. Thus, military service was a real school of life, where a simple peasant or shepherd was forged into a combat unit ready to sacrifice himself for the pharaoh. These skills acquired in training were the invisible force that ensured Egypt's dominance in the region. But knowing that they were fighting for their god Pharaoh was only half the battle. Ready to learn how simple clothing could serve a completely unexpected function and be used for more than just protection? Read on to the next chapter.
35th Regiment supplies are confirmed.
You've definitely never heard of this unique secret. If the army was the body of Egypt, then the bureaucracy was its nervous system, ensuring its smooth functioning.
The orders are clear and noted.
The military administration of ancient Egypt was surprisingly complex and efficient, allowing it to supply thousands of soldiers on long campaigns and keep track of every piece of equipment and provision. Without this meticulous paperwork, the pharaoh's military machine would not have been able to function. Keeping track of soldiers was one of the most important tasks. Detailed lists of personnel were kept, indicating their origin, age, place of service, and equipment received. Special scribes monitored the movements of each unit, as well as the distribution of rations and uniforms. This data helped the command to accurately know their forces and plan future operations. The supply system was truly monumental. To organize a campaign, it was necessary to prepare and transport a huge amount of provisions, grain, beer, dried meat, and fish. For this purpose, temporary warehouses were set up along the route of the troops, and supplies were delivered by water or by huge caravans of donkeys and porters. Each campaign was accompanied by an entire army of support personnel who were responsible for cooking, repairing weapons, and equipment. This convoy included doctors, veterinarians, blacksmiths, scribes, and even temple servants to perform daily rituals. Soldiers on the battlefield were surrounded by an invisible but very effective infrastructure. Particular attention was paid to keeping track of weapons: spears, bows, arrows, axes, shields. All of these were regularly checked and repaired. There were even special arsenals where spare parts and materials for the production of new weapons were stored. The loss of a weapon was a serious offense for which a soldier could be punished. Scribe also kept records of trophies and spoils captured during campaigns: gold, livestock, slaves, valuable materials. All of this was carefully recorded and sent to the pharaoh's treasury. It was these trophies that often became the basis for the construction of new temples and monuments, which was part of the pharaoh's ideology. This bureaucratic machine provided not only supplies but also social protection for soldiers. Scribes ensured that veterans received their land allotments or rations on time. This gave soldiers confidence that the state would not abandon them even after their service ended. Thus, behind every victory of Egypt stood not only the bravery of soldiers, but also the meticulous work of thousands of scribes and officials. It was a veritable logistical machine that made the existence of the great Egyptian empire possible. It was a true miracle of management for its time. Like this, if you think this system was brilliant for its time, what you are about to learn will change your perception of battles in the ancient world. The Battle of Kadesh, one of the most famous battles in Egyptian history, is often presented as a triumph for Ramses II and his chariots. However, upon closer examination, it becomes clear that it was the simple infantry, not the elite charioteers, who played a decisive role in saving the army from complete defeat. Unlike the light and fast chariots, which were effective in maneuverable combat, the infantry was much more resistant to frontal attacks. By closing their shields and raising their spears, they formed an almost impenetrable wall. The charioteers, unable to break through this formation, were forced to retreat. The weapons and equipment of an ordinary Egyptian infantryman were fairly simple but effective, designed for mass production and endurance on long marches. Depending on the era and specialization, a soldier's equipment varied, but the basic set remained the same. This set had to be light enough for soldiers to make long marches. The main defensive element was the shield. It was made of wood and covered with leather, and its shape was often rectangular or rounded at the top to provide maximum coverage for the body. The shield was not only a means of protection, but also part of the formation, allowing infantrymen to create a wall of shields to repel attacks. The Egyptians used several types of offensive weapons. For close combat, these were spears with bronze or copper tips, as well as battle axes. Battle axes had semicircular bronze blades attached to a wooden handle and were effective against lightly armored opponents. Armor was a luxury available mainly to officers and charioteers. However, a simple foot soldier of the New Kingdom could have quilted linen armor, which, although it did not protect against a direct blow with an axe, could cushion arrows or glancing blows. This armor was light and allowed for freedom of movement. The equipment also included a small backpack for provisions and personal belongings, a leather water flask, and of course, a simple dagger or knife, which served for household needs and, in extreme cases, for self-defense. All this equipment was adapted to the hot climate and harsh conditions of the campaign. Ready to learn a shocking truth? Military service was one of the few social ladders in the strictly hierarchical society of ancient Egypt. For a peasant or craftsman born into poverty, the army was a real chance to escape the cycle of endless labor and attain a respectable position. It was this chance for a better life that was the most powerful incentive for the loyalty and courage of the rank and file.
Try not to move it too much.
The path to success began with the lowest rank, private. However, even at this level, soldiers were guaranteed food, medical care, and a roof over their heads, which was an unattainable luxury for many of their peers. Joining the army automatically raised them several steps higher in the social.
No, he didn't.
Promotion in rank depended solely on personal merit, bravery, and length of service. A soldier who distinguished himself in battle could quickly become a corporal or even a sergeant commanding a small detachment. These lower officer positions already gave certain privileges and a noticeable increase in pay. The pinnacle of a common soldier's career was the opportunity to become a standard bearer, or, in the New Kingdom, one of the heroes of the king. These titles conferred enormous prestige, land grants, a permanent salary, and often the right to attend solemn ceremonies alongside the pharaoh. A peasant's son became part of the elite. Some soldiers who distinguished themselves in battle could be awarded the Gold of Valor. These gold pendants, often in the shape of flies, were considered the highest military award and gave their owner not only honor, but also considerable material wealth. It was a kind of order that changed a person's status. Service in the army also opened doors to the administrative apparatus. Many retired veterans were given positions as overseers, low-ranking officials, or administrators in garrisons. Their discipline and organizational skills were in high demand in the civilian life. This system not only ensured loyalty, but also motivated people to perform feats of valor. Soldiers knew that every successful battle and every act of bravery brought them closer to their dream of a dignified old age and respect. In this sense, the army was not an instrument of oppression, but an institution that gave hope. How much do you think this opportunity influenced the combat effectiveness of the Egyptian army? The army of ancient Egypt, especially during the heyday of the New Kingdom, was far from mono-ethnic. Foreign warriors or mercenaries made up a significant and often elite part of the pharaoh's armed forces. Their presence was due not only to a shortage of domestic personnel, but also to a desire to utilize the unique combat skills of other peoples. One of the most famous contingents were the Nubians, whom the Egyptians called Magi. They were renowned as unsurpassed archers. Their marksmanship and endurance in hot climates were invaluable. Units of Nubian archers often served in the vanguard of Egyptian troops, providing fire support. Soldiers from Libya joined the army and were known as excellent spearmen and infantrymen. They were valued for their ferocity in close combat. The pharaohs willingly recruited Libyans, granting them land and privileges in exchange for loyal service. During the reign of Ramses II, mercenaries from the Shurdan tribe, presumably from the Aegean region, appeared in the Egyptian army. These warriors were known for their large round shields, long swords, and horned helmets. Their tactics and weaponry were completely different from those of the Egyptians, which made them particularly effective against the enemy's heavy infantry. The presence of these foreign contingents was no accident. The pharaohs deliberately included them in their army to exploit their strengths. The Nubians were best suited to desert marches, while the Shurdan were best suited to direct combat. The integration of these warriors into Egyptian society was quite high. They received salaries, food, and often settled in specially designated neighborhoods or garrison towns. Many of them married Egyptian women and assimilated, becoming loyal subjects of the pharaoh. Ultimately, foreigners brought new tactics, weapons, and traditions to Egyptian military culture. This exchange made the army more flexible and adaptable to different combat conditions. This was one of the secrets of the longevity and strength of the Egyptian military machine. When war subsided and a period of peace began, thousands of soldiers were not discharged into the reserves. Instead, they became the most disciplined and effective workforce in the state. It was during peacetime that the multifunctionality of the Egyptian army became apparent. Soldiers participated in the pharaoh's largest construction projects. They were used to transport huge stone blocks from quarries and to erect obelisks, statues, and columns. Their discipline and ability to work in large groups allowed them to perform these logistically complex tasks, which were beyond the capabilities of ordinary work. They were the main workforce in the construction and maintenance of the irrigation system. Every summer the Nile flooded, and after the waters receded, it was necessary to quickly restore the canals, clean them of silt, and repair the dams. The harvest and consequently the survival of the entire state depended directly on this work. Soldiers also went on expeditions to extract minerals. In the quarries of Nubia, the mines of Sinai, and the desert oases, the warriors not only protected the workers from nomadic raids, but also participated in the hard work of extracting gold, copper, and precious stones. These peaceful campaigns were no less exhausting than military campaigns. Working under the scorching sun, far from home and with minimal comfort, required the same endurance and discipline as combat. But for a soldier, this was not simply coercion. It was his service, which was paid for by the state and secured his future. Thus, the army was not a consumer, but one of the main producers of material goods. Soldiers did not simply eat the pharaoh's bread, they worked for it by building, mining, and guarding. It was a very pragmatic and effective system of human resource utilization.
All troops, by the right, Face!
The army of ancient Egypt was famous for its strict discipline, which was the cornerstone of its combat effectiveness. With huge masses of people gathered from different regions and peoples, maintaining strict order was vital. For the slightest violation of the regulations or failure to carry out an order, a soldier could face severe punishment. Disciplinary measures were aimed not at destruction, but at correction and intimidation. The most common punishment was beating with a stick, the famous heavenly rod. This method was used for a wide range of offenses, from theft and indiscipline to carelessness with weapons or equipment. Punishment was carried out publicly to serve as a lesson to the entire unit. For more serious crimes, such as desertion, open insubordination, or treason, the punishment was much more severe. Deserters caught in the act could be deprived of their share of the spoils, demoted, or, in particularly serious cases, executed. However, executions were relatively rare, as every trained soldier was a valuable resource. Commanders had almost unlimited power over their subordinates. They could impose punishments at their discretion, but they also bore full responsibility for the condition and behavior of their troops. An officer whose unit showed cowardice or indiscipline in battle could be severely punished by the pharaoh. The statutes, which have come down to us in the form of papyri, described in detail the rules of conduct on the march, in camp, and on the battlefield. Soldiers had to know their duties by heart. It was a system based on strict hierarchy and unquestioning obedience to superiors. In addition to physical punishment, milder measures were also used, such as deprivation of rations or performing heavy, humiliating work. The goal was to break the will to disobey and restore order. Ultimately, the Egyptian army was an example of how strict order and rules could ensure stability.
In the name of the great Pharaoh, receive this land in reward for your service to the two kingdoms.
Service in the army of ancient Egypt was not lifelong, although it lasted for many years. After reaching a certain age or length of service, a soldier could retire, and the state did not abandon its veterans. The attitude towards retired soldiers was an important element of the loyalty system. The most important reward for a veteran was a land grant. The pharaoh allocated plots of land, often conquered or recaptured, which the former soldier could cultivate with his family. These lands were exempt from certain taxes, which ensured a decent livelihood for the veteran. This practice encouraged loyal service. You were fighting not only for the pharaoh, but also for your future. A veteran could also receive slaves or large cattle as a gift to work his land. This was an additional incentive that helped him establish a peaceful life. For a peasant who joined the army with almost nothing, this was real wealth. These veterans retained their high social status. They were respected in their communities for their bravery and service. They were living examples of how loyalty to the pharaoh could bring success and prosperity. Thus, they continued to serve the state as symbols. Veterans often formed fraternities or communities, supporting each other and their former comrades. This solidarity also helped them in civilian life, providing an additional social network and protection. They were a kind of reserve, people the pharaoh could rely on in the event of a serious internal or external threat. This attitude toward veterans was not simply charity, it was a pragmatic policy. The pharaoh knew that by caring for those who had served, he would motivate current soldiers to serve even better. Confidence in a dignified future was no less a weapon than a composite bow. We conclude our immersion into the world of the forgotten heroes of ancient Egypt. These simple soldiers, who built pyramids in peacetime and defended the empire in wartime, were the true foundation of the pharaoh's power. Their discipline, endurance, and loyalty, backed by a clear system of rewards and supplies, made the Egyptian army an invincible machine. Their story is not just a tale of battles. It is a lesson in the importance of valuing those at the bottom of the social pyramid, whose work ensures the very existence of great powers. From the ordinary archer to the veteran with a land grant, each of them was an integral part of the miracle we call ancient Egypt. It is they, and not just the golden sarcophagi, who deserve our remembrance. Which role of a simple soldier, builder, archer, or veteran with land do you think was most important for the longevity of Egyptian civilization? Suggest topics for future videos you would like to see on our channel in the comments, and don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss new episodes.